So in the previous video, we talked about an adaptive website and what that means. So now what we're going to do in this video is lay out the basic structure of the web page. The first thing that we need is a folder structure. So I've already gone in and created the folder structure. This is the same type of folder structure we've been using all semester, where we have our index page. We have a folder for style sheets. In this case, I'm only going to have one style sheet, but that style sheet is inside of my style sheets folder. So I have a style.css that I'm going to link. I have all of my images preloaded into a folder, and I have a folder called content that I can add additional pages to if I want to. I'm not going to for the purposes of this assignment, but I could do that. So my folder structure, I've already pre-done that and loaded my folder structure into Sublime over here. So I have an index page and a style sheet already created. I've already saved them, but there's no content in them. So the place where we would start before we even look at the basic layout of the page is we need to get our basic information in. So we're going to use that index 1.1 snippet that we created in Sublime. So we type index 1.1, we hit XHTML 1.1 is what we named that snippet. So then we hit tab, we get the code that we need to get our code to validate as XHTML 1.1 in the W3C validator. To make a responsive web page, we're going to add another meta tag, and we're going to add a meta tag that is going to be called the viewport. So name equals viewport, and all the viewport is the viewable space on the device that you're using, whether it's a computer, a tablet, a smartphone. So we set the viewport to the native device. We tell the browser to display the web page based on the native viewport on the device. And then our content is going to be equal to, we're going to say what the width needs to be. So the width is going to be equal to device width, device-width. And then we're going to set the initial scale to 1. So we're saying scale it 1:1 with the native viewing scale. So that's going to be because we're constructing an adaptive page. So that's what we're adding the viewport for. And when we do the next one where we use grid layout, we'll also be using the viewport tag in that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new meta tag, meta name equals author. And content is going to be me. This is my web page. So type my name in there and close out that tag. And then we need to get a link to our style sheet. So link type equals, it's text / it's CSS. The relation to the current web page relation is that it is the style sheet, and if I don't spell it right, it won't work. And then I need to do the hypertext reference, so href equals, and my index page over here can see my style sheets folder, so I can reference my style sheets folder directly. So style sheets and / open that folder, and inside of that folder I have a style.css file that's already been set up with no content in it, and then close that link. So there's kind of the preliminary stuff that goes in the head section, except right here with the title, we need to get a title that matches the page. And I named my fake business Central Cascades Adventures. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in for the title. So Central Cascade Adventures, and let's let the user know this is the home page for that website. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and nothing should be showing up yet. So if I go to the web page, nothing's really going on other than Central Cascades Adventures is showing up on on the tab. So the key is I want to look at the adaptive page that I have and think about how it's been broken into pieces. So up here I have a header section. Inside of that header section I have a logo and I have a navigation. And what I want to notice is that this header has been broken. There's two smaller divisions in it. One holds the logo, one holds the navigation, but the text is centered in each of those smaller divisions. And in fact, if I go down here to the second division, which is my showcase division, the text is centered inside of that. If I go down to my newsletter, it's broken into two pieces. I have a text piece, and then I have my form right over here in another division. And within each of those two divisions inside the larger, what I'm going to call the newsletter division, the text has been centered, and these icons, which are fake links to the different products that my adventure company offers, they've been centered as well, and my copyright information's been centered. So I'm going to need a class that just centers things for me. So I want to walk through and say, hey, I'm going to start off. It looks like up here I need a division for my header. So I'm going to go in to my body. I'm going to say division. And because I'm only going to have one header on the page, because I'm only going to have one header, I'm going to go ahead and use an ID in this particular case. So I'm going to say ID equals, I'm thinking style sheet, ID equals, and we're going to call this header. And remember, an ID means there's only going to be one of them. If we need something to happen, many times on a page, then we want it to be a class. So we'll give him an ID of header, and then close that division. And then inside of there, I'm going to have my logo. Right, I have my logo here, but I want to put my logo inside of a container whose job is going to be to control the width of things and to make sure things are centered. So I'm going to create a division here, and I'm going to want to center things many times on the page. So I'm going to have a division dedicated towards centering and controlling width. So we'll call this container. And then we want to close that division, and then inside of that division we'll put the actual header. So I'm going to put a division whose job is just to hold the header. So division, and there's only going to be one logo on the page, so I'm going to go ID equals, we'll call this logo. And then we'll close that division off. I don't feel like I'm doing so well here. So I have a container whose job is to center things and control width. The division whose ID is logo, his job is going to be to hold the logo and handle any styling that I need to happen within that logo. And my logo, you can see that I have I just used the header level 1 and changed the color here to match the color on the fire down at Weekend Warrior icon. So what I'm going to do is inside the logo division now I have my container class to float things inside of my header. Inside of this container I'm going to have a logo. My logo is just going to be a header level 1, and he's going to hold Central Cascade Adventures. So we'll close that header. And then we want to change the color of this. So we're going to wrap this in a span that we can then style in the style sheet. So I'm putting the span around the Central Cascade so that later on I can style that span to get this to look the way that I want, which is italicized and in a different color. So I think that takes care of the first container inside the header. So that's going to contain my logo. And then the second header inside there, the second division inside of my header division is going to be my navigation. I'm going to need another division. So we're going to call this, we'll tap over, and we're going to put another division in here, another container division that we'll use to center and control the width. So container division will center things and control the width. So close that division. And then inside of that container that we're just going to use to float things and control width, I'm going to put a division whose ID is going to be navigation. Navigation. There's only going to be one navigation menu on my page, so I'm going to give it an ID instead of a class, and then I'll close that division. So inside of that navigation division, inside of this navigation division, I need my actual links. In it I have about, testimonials, and places. About, testimonials, and places. So I'm going to put my links in an unordered list. So UL, put it in an unordered list, and so we're going to have list items, and the first list item was about, and then the second list item was, what was it, testimonials, and then the third list item was, what was it? My memory is failing me. About, testimonials, and places. So places in my mind were places that I can actually take my customers to visit. So places, what are their different options? So I'm going to go ahead and save this and just make sure things are showing up. So go here, refresh, Central Cascades Adventures, there's my logo, here's going to be my links. So I need to get the anchor tags on those links. They're not clickable yet because we put the names in the list, but didn't add the anchor tags. So anchor, my anchor would need a hypertext reference, so href equals, and this would be inside my content folder, so I'd put content.htm. Sorry, I got that wrong. It's going to be inside my content folder. So content / and this is about, so I would probably name it about.htm. There's the name of my page that I haven't made. It's just a fake page at this point. So I've got my hypertext reference, and let's close that anchor. And the anchor's inside the list item. So we need to do that a couple more times. Anchor href equals, hey, we need to open the content folder and get the testimonials.htm page that I haven't created, but I would. And then we would need to close that anchor, so close the anchor. And then one more anchor tag, so we get anchor hypertext reference equals, it's inside my content folder / places.htm. There's my opening anchor tag, and let's close that anchor tag off. Oops, I didn't close the parentheses, and so now I need to close the anchor tag right there. And let's refresh that and make sure that's looking okay. So control save and then refresh the page. And we've got our tags, and you can see I've got a broken tag there, so I need to go back and find that and clean that up. He's right there. He does need, okay. And let's save and make sure it looks like it's okay. Alright, so far so good. So nice and ugly, doesn't look anything like what it's going to look like. So the next thing that we need to build is the showcase. And so the showcase is going to be a division. We'll give it an ID of showcase. It'll be the only one. It has a header level 1 in it that needs to be centered, and it has some text in a paragraph. And I think I just used a break to get the John Muir to go down a line. So we'll go ahead and do the next division. So the next division is going to be my showcase division. So we'll give this an ID of showcase. And then I want the text inside the showcase to be centered and of a specific width. So we're going to take that division whose class is container that we're going to use to control width and floating of the main content. We need to create him. So close that division up. And then inside of there I've got a header, and it looked like a level 1 also. Yeah, a level 1. This might even have been a level 2. It's a little, we can change that later if we have to. It might be a header 2. So header 1, and we need to put our text in it. Your adventure begins. Close the header, and then I have a paragraph inside of there. And what was it? The mountains are calling and I must go. Put a line break. Put a line break, self-closing tag, John Muir. Close the paragraph. Well, let's take a peek. We're going to want John Muir italicized. So let's go ahead and put John Muir in a span. Maybe we could put, I want to do it with a span. So let's see, make sure everything looks like it's closing. There's my showcase division. I'm inside of a container to float it. Class is container, ID is showcase. I have a header 1 and a paragraph with a quote inside of there. And I think that's everything I want for the showcase division. Let's make sure it's showing up all right. There it is. So we'll take a look at the fly that's landing on me. Take a look at the other page. The next division down is going to be my newsletter division. So I need a text, a little text division here, and this is going to be a form division. So I need I'm going to call this whole thing newsletter. So I'm going to make a division called with an ID of newsletter. So division, and give him an ID of newsletter. And then I need things to float inside of there, so I'm going to put a division class equals container that controls width and floating. Again, it's a class because we're using it over and over again on the page. And need to close that division. And let's not let these guys get ahead or away from. I'm missing a close. Here's my header. Header, container, container. I'm missing a closing division tag right up here to close off that first division up there. So these guys actually should have been backed up one all the way through to get the indentation right. And he's a stray. There we go. Class equals container. So I've got the container to float this, and there's going to be some text in here. Maybe that's just a paragraph of text. So for now we'll just put it in a paragraph. We might change our mind as we go. So paragraph. And inside that paragraph we need to put the text. And the text was subscribe to our newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter. And then I've got another container on the other side. So I've got this is in its own division. So he needs to be inside his own container. And we'll put, so we'll give him another little container. And I think we can get away with just doing this with containers. So div class equals container. And close that division. There we go. And actually I do want to give it a name. I think this is going to be my email division. This is where I send my I receive emails from the user, and I may want to style the form inside of here very specifically. So I'm going to call this I'm going to make a division called with an ID of subscribe, so I can style that if I need to. So inside of this floating container, I'm going to make a division with an ID of subscribe, so that I can style him separately if I need to do that. And inside of there I need to put a form. So this is something we haven't done yet, but this is a form. So I need to make a form, and that form needs to have an input and a button. So I'm going to make a form. Let's close that form. And inside the form I need an input, and the input here is going to be, well, the form, usually a form has an action. Usually you have action equals, and usually you would put something like a page that's going to process it. So usually when you hit the button that is the submit button, you're going to call like a PHP page, for example, that's going to work with saving your data into a database on the back end, or do some back end processing. So we're not going to have that until spring term, but I'll go ahead and put the action equals with no web address at this time. And then but I would usually have a link to a file here that actually processed the form when I was done. Right now this is going to be a dummy form that we're going to use to style. So input, and the type of input is going to be equal to email. And then we're going to do placeholder. And all a placeholder does is displays some default text. So this type email here is what goes into the placeholder. So if I want it to say type email here, I use placeholder to do that. And I'm going to close that, and then we're going to make it's a self-closing tag, and then we're going to make a button, and the type of the button is going to be a submit button. So type is going to equal submit. And we'll leave it like that for now. I might change it. I might change it later. And let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got so far. Hit refresh. Subscribe to our newsletter. Pretty boring. It works. And that's good. I think we've got everything laid out there. So there's that. And then we'll go ahead and lay this guy out. So this one I'm going to call We want to call this, I thought I had a good name for it earlier. I mean, these are my offerings. So these are the different types of things that I sell. So what I want to call that, offerings, adventures. I'm going to call it offerings for right now. That's a really horrible name. I'm just going to live with it. So division, he's closing the newsletter division. So we're going to open a new division. ID equals whatever we want to call that. I'm going to call it offerings. I may change the name if I can think of something more clever. Close that division. And inside of that division, I need to put the container that's going to hold everything. So I need the container that centers the icons and controls page width. So we're going to go div class equals container. My quotation mark is just escaped. And then I need to close that division. And I lost my quotation mark, so it's not highlighting right. There we go. And inside the container, I've got some divisions here, each of which holds the icon with the link. So I need what I need is to make 4 additional divisions, but they're going to be styled the same way. So I'm going to use a class name. I'm going to call my class icons, for lack of a better idea. So I'm a div, close div, and then my class is going to be icons. And I'm going to need 4 of these. So copy that. And then inside of each of those divisions, I'm going to have my picture. So the first picture is day hikes, and I believe I called that image mountain. It's mountain.svg. So I'm going to put my image in here. So image, I'm going to try to put my image in there. Let me put a space between each of these so I don't mess up. So put my image in. So first one is image search equals, and we're going to do that's in my images folder, images / and it was mountain.svg, and close that image. Now we'll probably need alt equals, and close that image, and then there was some text below it, and that text was a link to day hikes. And then the next one down is the fire, which I hopefully call is campfire.svg. And yeah, SVG. So the next one down, image search equals, and it's in the images folder, and it's called campfire.svg. Alt equals campfire. Close it. And the text underneath that one was Weekend Warrior. And then I need another image. Image search equals images / and that one was the tent, which I called tent.svg, and that's ultralight. So tent.svg alt equals tent. Close that, and that was ultralight. And then my last one here. So you can see it just takes a while to set things up. It's actually faster doing, I think it's faster doing the CSS than it is laying the page out. Section hikes, and that's a stove, so it's, did I call it stove? Yes, I'm good. Stove.svg, alt equals, no, it's already out of my head. It's going to be section hikes, so whoops, so alt equals close the image, section hikes, and let's just save this and make sure that pictures are actually showing up and I didn't mistype anything, because that's what's going to happen. So big pictures showing up, words are underneath each of them, so that's about what it ought to look like. And then it's just a matter of getting the last guy in there, not that, the last guy in there. And the last guy is just the footer. So we need a footer with a floating container inside of it holding our copyright information. Maybe I can just copy and paste my copyright information in. So one final division. ID is going to equal footer. We need to close that division. And then inside of that division, I need a division that is my class equals container. Need to close that division. And inside that, we're going to have a simple paragraph that has the copyright information in it. We need to get rid of the copyright symbol there. So for copyright, we're going to use ampersand. It should be ampersand copy, I think. Ampersand copy colon, I think. 2018 by Central Cascades Adventures. Close that paragraph off. Hit save, and let's make sure we have everything showing up. Control save. Whoop. Not control refresh. I already saved it. Or did I forget to save it? No. Section hikes and then copyright 2018 by Central Cascades Adventures. So I think I have everything on the page that I need in order to get ready to set this up. So next video, we're just going to step through in a sequence of videos styling each piece as we go.